Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to a brand new story. This lesson is lesson number 23, and the story that we are reading is called The Goat in the Rug. We are going to start with our vocabulary. I'm going to say the word. I'd like you to say the word. I'm right over here. Yarn, strands, spinning, dye, weave, sharpening, duplicated, delicious. So I am going to read each of the words again and use them in a sentence. I want you to use context clues and try to guess what you think the meaning of the word is in our story this week. And remember, some of these words could be either multiple meaning words, could be homophones, or could have endings that change the tense of the verbs, suffixes like ing or ed. Let's start with the first vocab word. It is yarn. People use yarn to knit sweaters, hats, and mittens. I want you to think about what yarn is. What is yarn? When might have you seen somebody use yarn? We're going to talk about it at the end. We're doing it a little differently this time. The next word is strands. Say strands. The strands of yarn are tied into knots at the bottom of this rug. Think about using the picture what strands mean. I think of strands of hair. I'm running my fingers through my strands of hair right now. Take a guess of what you think it means. We're going to talk about it on the next slide. The third vocab word is spinning. It takes a lot of practice spinning chunks of wool into thin yarn. What does spinning mean? I also think of a bicycle. The wheels on a bicycle are spinning when you ride quickly down a hill. Think of what the meaning of spinning may be. Your next word is dye. D-Y-E. These shirts are soaked in dye to make them colorful. The shirts started out white before, but they have color now. What might the word dye mean in this sentence? Your next word is weave. The woman will weave dried grass into the basket. What do you think the word weave means in this sentence? Number 6, sharpening. The pencil does not need sharpening anymore. I'm looking at it. It looks like it has a very pointy tip. So that might help you figure out what sharpening means. Your next word is duplicated. This one's a little harder, boys and girls. Some colors on this rug are duplicated. They appear again and again. When I think of the word duplicated, I think of making a copy of something. And your final word is delicious. I bet you know what this word means. This baker makes delicious cakes. They are very tasty. Well, we can use the context clues here. Delicious and tasty are synonyms. Let's take a look at our next slide to see if you guessed the correct meaning of our words this week. So your first word was yarn. Yarn is a thick thread made of cotton or wool. Give yourself a tug if you got that one right. So let's say yarn 3 times together in our whisper voice. Here we go. Yarn, yarn, yarn. Very good. Your next word was strands. The definition of strands is single pieces of thread. So remember, like I said, our hair, if you pull your hair apart, you can see that you have individual pieces or single pieces. That is the same thing with yarn. You can pull the yarn apart and you can see that you have single strands of the yarn. So let's say strands in a high-pitched voice 3 times. Strands, strands, strands. Very good, boys and girls. Your next word is spinning. Spinning means twisting together materials to make yarn or thread. So it is a little bit different than the spinning of your bicycle wheel, but it kind of gets the same idea. So I want you to take your hair and I want you just to twist it ever so gently. And I want you to say spinning with a little twist on your tongue like this. Spinning, spinning, spinning. Very good. The next word you needed to define was the word dye. This dye means a substance used to change the color of something. So I always think of when I tie-dye shirts with my kiddos. We start with a white shirt and we use different colors of dye to change the colors. Or you can even think back to Easter, boys and girls, when you might have dyed Easter eggs at home. So when I say the word dye, I'm going to say it in my man voice 3 times. Here we go. Dye, dye, dye. Your next word is the word weave. This means to make cloth by crossing materials one over the other. Also, you can, if you would look outside, you may find a bird's nest right now since it's spring. And birds weave to make their nests. So I have my fingers weaved together right now. Weave your fingers together just by crossing them. And I am going to say weave in a bird almost like voice 3 times. Here we go. Weave, weave, weave. Very good. Your next word is sharpening. Sharpening means making something have a sharper edge or point. So if you remember back to the slide before, it showed a picture of a pencil. They were sharpening that pencil. It had a very pointed end. Let's say sharpening 3 times in our regular voice. Sharpening, sharpening, sharpening. Great job. The next word is duplicated. Duplicated means to have made an exact copy of something. So the context clue here is copy or duplicated. They are synonyms. I'm going to say, you're going to say, so we can practice this. We're going to say duplicated 3 times. I say it, you say it back however I say it. Duplicated. 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 Excellent job, boys and girls. Your last word is delicious, and we know what delicious means. Delicious means to have a very good taste. Yum, 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 yum. I want you to get your hungry voice out and say delicious 3 times. Delicious, delicious, delicious. Excellent job, boys and girls. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about each of these words. What would you like to make if you learned how to weave? Think about that. I would like to make a basket to carry apples in. What about you, boys and girls? Your next question, what can be made out of yarn? Well, my favorite things made out of yarn are scarves. What are some steps to spinning wool into yarn? And you might not be able to answer this one yet, but after our story today, you sure will be able to. What adjectives describe a strand of hair? So you're describing maybe different than mine. My strand of hair is long. It is blonde. And it is clean. What are some adjectives that describe your strand of hair? Next, would you rather be the one who narrates a story aloud or listens to? I like to do both. I like to tell and listen to stories. Next, what woven products do you have at your home? My favorite one is a blanket that my grandma made me. Your next question, what might a tradition, boys and girls, might a tradition be important to a family? Well, that might be different for each of your families, what tradition you have and why it's important. I know that we have the tradition of reading a story together on Christmas Eve. And that's important to us because then my kiddos know it's time to go to sleep and the next day we're going to have so much fun together. Your next question, how could you protect yourself when sharpening a tool? Well, first of all, boys and girls, you should never sharpen a tool without an adult. That should be your number one answer there. Your next question, what is one of the foods that you find the most delicious? On the count of three, say it with me. 1, 2, 3, pizza! And your last question on this page, how could you duplicate a drawing or painting? There are lots of ways that you could do that, boys and girls, and I would love to hear your ideas. Our next activity that we're going to do, you're going to need to open your Journeys books to pages 278. And then our stopping point today will be page 297. I would like you to do a picture walk of the story, The Goat in the Rug. And then either write your prediction down of what you think will happen in the story, or tell an adult or older sibling in your home. Sorry, I'm used to saying class. Remember, a prediction starts. I predict because, and give an example of something that you saw in the story. After you've done that, boys and girls, we have your read aloud right here today, and your comprehension questions are asked throughout the reading of the story. So please follow along. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Boys and girls, this week's story is lesson 23. The title of our story is The Goat in the Rug by Geraldine, as told by Charles L. Blood and Martin Link, illustrated by Nancy Winslow Parker. Please listen as I play aloud. Meet the authors.
Meet the authors, Charles L. Blood and Martin Link. These two authors wrote The Goat in the Rug from the point of view of Geraldine, the goat. Charles L. Blood also wrote a book about Native American crafts and games. Martin Link was once a ranger with the National Park Service in Arizona. Meet the illustrator, Nancy Winslow Parker. When Nancy Winslow Parker was a kid, she looked forward to spring cleaning. That was when her mom put new shelf paper in the kitchen cabinets and dresser drawers. The lucky young artist was given all the old paper to draw on. Genre: narrative nonfiction, tells a true story about a topic. As you read, look for a setting that is real, events in time order, facts and information. In the Rug by Geraldine, as told to Charles L. Blood and Martin Link, illustrated by Nancy Winslow Parker.
The essential question is, how is art connected to the past? You should be able to answer that question when the story is over, boys and girls. Here we go. Please follow along.
My name is Geraldine, and I live near a place called Window Rock with my Navajo friend, Glen May. It's called Window Rock because it has a big round hole in it that looks like a window open to the sky. Glen May is called Glen May most of the time because it's easier to say than her Indian name, Gli Nazba. In English, that means something like female warrior, but she's really a Navajo weaver. I guess that's why one day she decided to weave me into a rug.
Boys and girls, your first question is, which character is Geraldine? And then what clues in the story help you know that? So which one of these characters do you think is Geraldine on the page? If you picked she is the goat, you are correct. The illustration shows two characters, a goat and a woman. Geraldine says she lives with her Navajo friend. So Geraldine is the goat.
Remember, it was a warm, sunny afternoon. Glen May had spent most of the morning sharpening a large pair of scissors. I had no idea what she was going to use them for, but it didn't take me long to find out.
Boys and girls, why do you think the author chooses to have Geraldine tell the story? Geraldine is a goat, so she will tell the story differently than a person would. This can make the story more interesting and funny for us as a listener or a reader.
Before I knew what was happening, I was on the ground, and Glen May was clipping off my wool in great long strands. It's called mohair, really. It didn't hurt at all, but I admit I kicked up my heels some. I'm very ticklish for a goat. I might have looked a little naked and silly afterwards, but my, did I feel nice and cool. So I decided to stick around and see what would happen next.
Boys and girls, what do you think Geraldine means when she says she kicked up her heels? Geraldine probably means that she squirmed around because she is very ticklish. Why does Geraldine feel silly after Glen May clips her wool? Think about when you have a haircut. Make a text-to-text connection. She is used to having the long fur, and now she doesn't, so it's a different feeling.
The first thing Glen May did was chop up roots from a yucca plant. The roots made a soapy, rich lather when she mixed them with water. She washed my wool in the suds until it was clean and white. After that, a little bit of me, you might say, was hung up in the sun to dry. When my wool was dry, Glen May took out 2 large square combs with many teeth. By combing my wool between these carding combs, as they're called, she removed any bits of twigs or burrs and straightened out the fibers. She told me it helped make a smoother yarn for spinning.
Boys and girls, how do you think the wool might have gotten twigs or burrs in it? Boys and girls, it probably got twigs and burrs in it because the wool used to make this used to be Geraldine's coat, and wool fibers may have collected the twigs and burrs when she rubbed against the plant.
Is the text. Sequence of events. Retell what Glen May has done so far to make the rug. Then Glen May carefully started to spin my wool, one small bundle at a time, into yarn. I was beginning to find out it takes a long while to make a Navajo rug. Again and again, Glen May twisted and pulled the wool. Then she spun it around a long, thin stick she called a spindle. As she twisted and pulled and spun, the finer, stronger, and smoother the yarn became.
Please go back and sequence the events so far that Glen May has done to make the rug.
2 days later, Glen May and I went for a walk. She said we were going to find some special plants she would use to make dye. I didn't know what dye meant, but it sounded like a picnic to me. I do love to eat plants. That's what got me into trouble.
Why do you think Glen May wanted to find plants to make the dye? She probably did this because she will use the dye to add color to the wool, because the wool is very plain.
While Glen May was out looking for more plants, I ate every one she had already collected in her bucket. Delicious.
Why do you think eating the plants will get Geraldine into trouble? If you think about that, boys and girls, it will get her into trouble because Glen May wanted to use those plants to color the wool.
Next day, Glen May made me stay home while she walked miles to a store. She said the dye she could buy wasn't the same as the kind she makes from plants, but since I'd made such a pig of myself, it would have to do.
Boys and girls, there's an example of problem and solution on this page. Can you think of what that is? Well, the problem is that Geraldine ate the plants for the dye. So now Glen May has no dye. She solves her problem by going to the store to buy new dyes.
Really worried that she would still be angry with me when she got back. She wasn't, though, and pretty soon she had 3 big potfuls of dye boiling over a fire. Then I saw what Glen May had meant by dyeing. She dipped my white wool into one pot, and it turned pink. She dipped it in again. It turned a darker pink. By the time she'd finished dipping it in and out and hung it up to dry, it was a beautiful deep red.
Why is Geraldine worried that Glen May will be angry with her when she gets back from the store? Geraldine has caused a lot of trouble by eating the dye ingredients, so she was worried that she made her mad.
After that, she dyed some of my wool brown and some of it black. I couldn't help wondering if those plants I'd eaten would turn all of me the same colors. Analyze the text. Conclusions. Why does Geraldine think she'll turn red, brown, and black?
Geraldine is worried about this, boys and girls, because she ate the plants that Glen May was going to use to dye the wool. So she thinks that she will turn those colors since she ate those plants. But we know that's not true.
I was worrying about that. Glen May started to make our rug. She took a ball of yarn and wrapped it around and around 2 poles. I lost count when she'd reached 300 wraps. I guess I was too busy thinking about what it would be like to be the only red, white, black, and brown goat at Window Rock.
What would have happened if Glen May had skipped the step of using the dyes when she was making the rug? Boys and girls, the answer to that question is the rug would be very plain. It would just be the color of the wool.
It wasn't long before Glen May had finished wrapping. Then she hung the poles with the yarn on a big wooden frame. It looked like a picture frame made of logs. She called it a loom. After a whole week of getting ready to weave, Glen May started. She began weaving at the bottom of the loom. Then, one strand of yarn at a time, our rug started growing toward the top. A few strands of black, a few of brown, a few of red, in and out, back and forth, until in a few days, the pattern of our rug was clear to see. Our rug grew very slowly, just as every Navajo weaver before her had done for hundreds and hundreds of years. Glen May formed a design that would never be duplicated.
Why do you think Glen May's rug will never be duplicated? Remember, duplicated means making a copy of. This is because each weaver makes a design that is not copied by other weavers. It is their very unique design, much like your fingerprints, boys and girls.
Then, at last, the weaving was finished. But not until I'd checked it quite thoroughly in front and in back did I let Glen May take our rug off the loom. There was a lot of me in that rug. I wanted it to be perfect, and it was. Since then, my wool has grown almost long enough for Glen May and me to make another rug. I hope we do very soon, because you see, there aren't too many weavers like Glen May left among the Navajos.
Why do you think Navajo rugs are so special? I think they're so special because it takes a long time for Navajo weavers to make a rug. Rug designs are not copied. There are very few weavers left among the Navajo.
There's only one goat like me, Geraldine.
Boys and girls, why do you think the author titled this story The Goat and the Rug? I think they titled it, The Goat and the Rug, because Geraldine's wool is used to make the rug.
Is the true story of a weaver and her goat who lived in the Navajo Nation at Window Rock, Arizona.
Okay, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed that story. We have a few extension activities for you. One is if you click here, it will take you to a site where you could play online Pictionary using your vocabulary words, or you could also play it with an adult at home. And then we have an awesome paper weaving activity that you just need 2 pieces of construction paper, scissors, and glue. So please enjoy those activities. And I hope that you loved our story, The Goat and the Rug, as much as I did. Have a great day.